Hello everybody, this is Dakian, welcoming you to the 28th of May 2018 and my weekly report on painting. And this week, as opposed to last week, there's a bunch of stuff to show you. First off, I finished all these cultists. And as you can see, I went for a sort of nautical theme. I decided they got tentacle faces. They should be some sort of evil sea god cult. I mean, they even got something like Cthulhu on the back of the chair there. So I went with greenish colors, sort of blue-green for the robes, and a very dark, well, it's a very dark blue-green tending towards black for the hoods. So this guy is sitting here with a little camel. We have a guy with a dagger, and it's like if they're a sea cult, they're going to spend a lot of time in water. They shouldn't have iron or steel weapons. They're going to rust, so I gave them bronze gear. This guy has no gear. This guy isn't wearing anything else. Yeah, and they have some portions. They have some hands that are not tentacles, and so I painted those in sort of normal skin tones. Here's another guy with a dagger. I painted the pommel kind of like an eye. I thought that was amusing. Some of these guys are kind of taller than the others. I'm not sure why. This one has a staff, also with an eye in it. And some tentacles peeking out the back. Let's see, what else do we have here? These guys have shown the book. This guy reading from a tome of evil blasphemous secrets of some sort. This guy is kind of hunched over. He has a staff with multiple eyes on the end. And this guy is holding a sort of, I don't think it's a weapon, I think it's a censer for burning incense, but it looks big and heavy enough that it probably could be used as a weapon. And finally, the guy sitting in the chair is, like I said, I've left him, oops, separate. He's just there. He's kind of the most boring guy of them all. I took the advice of one of my viewers, actually, and I covered up some of the bad casting of the basis with some grass. In this case, I'm trying to make it look like moss or lichen by using shorter haired static grass. This is 1mm grass, which is really intended for use with 15mm war games. But I think it can substitute as a kind of a mossy undergrowth for this scale. By the way, this stuff is really hard to work with. When the hairs are that short, they tend to clump together in little, in small, like nodules. They collect into small balls. They're not evenly distributed, and getting it to unclump is a pain in the back side, and it leads to a lot of grass spread all over the desk and the floor. But I eventually got it to work somehow. And yeah, it's not super. I mean, if you look closely, the highlighting is a little rough in places. The transitions are not smooth, but this is like an army. This is like a big unit of guys, and I can't spend hours upon hours on every one of them. I gotta get through them relatively quickly. So I did a little bit of speed painting on it. But I'm happy with the result. I hope you are too. Continuing on, I actually finished even more. Let's move on. So, it is also time to... no, I'm not going to say it. But you can see here, the Kraken is a big whopping figure, and it's finally finished, tentacles and all. And I'm you know, this was a long project, and like, as I mentioned before, I played around with it for a long time before finalizing it. The final thing to do was the tentacles, which I wanted to paint them a different color than the main body, so it eventually became this wet blended transition between 3 different colors. I'm not sure if it comes across, but it starts as a dark purple, which is the undertone for the pink on the other parts of the body, and transitions into a blue-green and then into a sort of light yellowish green at the tips. And it's not highlighted in the sense that it's not zenithal highlighted. I haven't bothered to paint it lighter on the upper sides or anything like that. I think natural lighting will take care of that. And I don't know where the inspiration for that color scheme came from. I suppose, you know, all creativity is theft, so I must have seen it somewhere else at some point, but I can't remember where. As for the rest of the color scheme, you know, it just struck me as amusing to take a big dangerous monster like a kraken and then paint it a bright, happy pink color. I thought it was a fun contrast. I'm not really sure about why it's tilted so much forward on the base. It's because this was the tricky part and I can talk about this because I know some people were interested in how do I attach the tentacles. You have to dry fit them, and you have to dry fit them when it's attached to the base, because if you're assuming that it will be horizontal like this, you're gonna screw it up, because a lot of the tentacles cannot be put on the lower portions here because they will go like below ground level. They will, you know, it's not gonna work. They're gonna stick down too much. So you have to be really careful and position them when it's in position, so to speak. And a lot of them are sweeping the ground as it is. So I assume what they're going for is the idea that, you know, there's some adventurers standing on an ocean floor, and this kraken is coming over the top of this ship, and it's angling down to catch them in its maw. I assume that's why it's sculpted the way it is. That's my only explanation. And for the adding of the tentacles, I hopefully the transition here between the body on these scales looks okay. Because what I had to do was a bunch of cutting. I think it's kind of mostly obvious here on this one. You see there's like a divot. It goes down there, and then oops, suddenly the scales are up there. I could not fix that. There was not, well, I would have had to do some really serious sculpting to fix that. In other cases where it was the opposite, where the let's see if I have an example. I think this one, it was the opposite. It was too high, and I just cut it down and I roughened it up a bit, and I added some plastic putty to smooth it out, and then painted over it. And hopefully you don't think about it. It's just, it'll look okay. But, you know, I'm glad that's done. Let's move on to look at works in progress. So I thought I'd pan a little bit over my work table. Again, most of what I'm going to show you has seen a little bit of work, a little bit more than last week, not much. For example, the cat people, I decided they're lion people because I painted them sort of this golden tan color. I've done the skin, well, fur technically, but there's no fur texture on them. So I painted like skin, except not skin colors, but more fur colors, if that makes sense. Also the hair. So on these, same thing on these human and the gnome, I've done the skin and eyes. Not sure if you can tell. I'm not zoomed in enough. Yeah. and the metallics were done since before, and I did the staff on the wizard, and on the junior wizard also the staff is done. So yeah, moving over here, more shading on the metallics, started work on the flames coming from the sword, same thing on this one, and here also just shading the metallics. That's about it for this guy. I've started all these 6 kobolds and 3 goblin miniatures primed, and they have a sort of zenithal undercoating primer layer, and done some painting on the bases. The same thing here with the Treant, also done some basing work, and the Dryad, same thing. The Gorloth, I've been dry brushing a little bit on these textured fins, and that's about all that's gotten done there. So yeah, working on it piecemeal, piece by piece, and I'll finish some of these guys by next week, I think. Probably the Bones minis first, because they're the easiest, and they're also the most needed models for play. But you know, bit by bit, I'm gonna add a little here, a little there, and eventually all of these will be finished. That's the work in progress. So since there aren't any new arrivals this week, I'll end by showing you where I'm at with the orcs. I've cleaned them up, sort of straightened the spears as much as I could, put them on bases, and added some basing effects. Now, these orcs are not the latest generation of bones. I'm not sure, I think they might be first wave, or maybe second. They still had some pretty hefty mold lines. For example, as I see here, I haven't cleaned this one off properly. I have to do that, go in there right across the top of the head. Put that aside, and look at that. But all things considered, they're okay for what they're supposed to be, army figures. Now, the next set of stuff, I've opened up the packets of these hobgoblins, and in each of these 2 blisters of the new Bones hobgoblins, there is one old sculpt. This is a model that I painted before in metal, and here's one new sculpt. Same thing in this blister. This archer here is an old sculpt. This is a new sculpt. So that's interesting. Yeah, but they're next. After that, I know I said I would do all of these bones in one go, but actually I'm gonna retract that, because what's left are some ogres. I have no immediate need for that many ogres. I already have an ogre or 2 painted up. That's gonna be enough for the low level play. Also, there's one missing. What I mean by that is, in the latest batch of releases of Bones, there were 5 ogres. But when I ordered from S&M stuff, one of those was out of stock. So I've only got 4 of them. And for efficiency and for consistency in paint schemes, I want to paint all 5 of those at the same time. I want to do them in one batch. So I'm waiting for that last ogre to come back in stock so I can buy him, and then I'll paint those 5 all at once. That's the plan. So what am I going to put into production instead of those? Well, we'll see. I don't need to decide that now. I can wait until next week to give you an update on that. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this week. More productive video this week. Always nice to see, I hope. And I hope you enjoyed it. Click like, subscribe, share, comment, and all that good stuff. I will see you a week from now. Until then, this is Dakiyan, signing off.